Despite being one of the best coaches for the past half decade, Brad Underwood has never been recognized as the Big Ten Coach of the Year. Could this year be different?
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. You can find us on your favorite audio platform or on YouTube. Just do a search for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Sunny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast or at the Sunny V on Twitter, or go on to your favorite social platform. Just do a quick search for Locked On Illini. It's me that's handling all those accounts. So if you want to tell me what you like about the show or what you don't like about the show, just know you'll be getting an answer from me directly. If you'd like to support the channel, please hit that like button, subscribe button. It costs you guys nothing, and it helps the channel grow. My goal was to hit 1,300 subscribers on YouTube before Purdue kickoff. So if you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. Let's get the vibe started off right for the Cannon game on Saturday. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So as many of you know, and we've kind of covered, last week in Chicago was the Big Ten Media Days, essentially kicking off basketball season. Practices also started, and we got a chance to see what the media thought of all the different teams in the conference. Illinois, in the initial poll, was projected to finish fourth in the conference behind Purdue, Indiana, and I believe UCLA was third, and then Illinois being number 4. And also, what I found notable was when it released its preseason All Big Ten team, it released the name of 10 players, and not a single one of them was an Illini. So what does that tell you? To me, it tells me that it could potentially set up the first opportunity for Brad Underwood to win his first ever elusive Coach of the Year. Now, as I mentioned in the open, Brad Underwood has been the most successful Big Ten coach in the last 6 seasons. I believe he has the most wins, and if it's not the most wins, he's tied or down by 1 to Matt Painter. Regardless, those two have been running the league for the past 2 years. And yet, Coach Underwood has never gotten the recognition that, quite honestly, he deserves. Now, keep in mind, in that timeline, last year, Matt Painter and Fred Hoiberg won Co-Coach of the Year. Juwan Howard had won a Coach of the Year. Chris Collins has won a Coach of the Year. And Wisconsin's Greg Gard has won that trophy twice. Greg Gard, a guy that Wisconsin Badgers fans at this point wouldn't be sad to see gone from the Wisconsin position. Brad, despite all the victories that he's kind of totaled up over the last couple of years, just hasn't had the season that is required to win the trophy. And what I mean by that is Brad is almost a victim of his own success. Every single year, he's projected to be one of the best coaches in the conference. He's coaching one of the best teams in the conference. Illinois routinely has won 20 plus games every single year. And for that reason, I think the media looks at Brad Underwood as simply living up to expectations. If in the preseason, Illinois came in projected to be the 6th or 7th best team and winning 15, 16 games, and Brad Underwood had one of his seasons, well, then Brad Underwood would probably have a trophy on his shelf. But unfortunately for him, Brad does such a good job annually that his expectations are at a completely different level than essentially 15 of the other coaches in the conference. But this year could be different. Again, when you're Illinois isn't looked at as one of the favorites to win the conference. You're talking about the number 4 best team, projected at least. And on top of that, you don't have a single player, a single guy who most people are looking at as a potential All-American. So what does that do? That basically sets the table for Brad to be in contention for this award that he's never gotten. Now, does it matter? No. Does he want this trophy? I'm sure he does. And I don't know about you guys, but as an Illinois fan, I want him to be recognized as a coach of the year because you know what? He's been, and I'm very comfortable saying this now, he's the best coach that I recall Illinois ever having in my generation. Now, keep in mind, I basically started watching post Lou Henson. Bill Self, obviously legend, one of the all-time best college basketball coaches, but his stint with Illinois was so short that I find it hard pressed for me to count that against Brad Underwood's tenure at this point and just annual success that he's had. Brad is clearly one of those coaches where when he's coaching your team, you love him, but when you're not coaching, well, then he kind of gets the ire of a lot of opposing fan bases, whether it's the perceived non-business style of having super soaker fights after victories or him being too mean to players or his face turning red because he likes to yell at players. A lot of opposing fan bases are able to take those kind of shots at Brad, knowing that the Illini fan base is so incredibly passionate that we're not just going to sit there and let our coach take those shots. The best revenge is him being able to not just succeed, because he succeeds every single year, but what he doesn't control is the media's expectations for the team. If Brad Underwood can finish in the top 2 in the conference this year, maybe even top 3, without any of the 10 best perceived preseason all Big Ten players, what does that tell you? That tells you, according to me, that he did a good coaching job, that he overperformed to his talent level. Now, granted, this could be a misfire from the media, and I think it is. By the end of the year, Illinois might have 2, if not 3, all Big Ten players. But it's all about how you frame the narrative. At that point, we can say that Coach Brad Underwood coached these players up beyond their own expectations, beyond their potential. Now, granted, I'm biased here. All you everydayers know that I'm a big fan of Brad Underwood, and there's not a single coach in the conference that I would trade places with. And that includes our neighbors to the west, in West Lafayette. I think Brad Underwood is the perfect head coach for this program. I love how forward-thinking he is. I love his ability to adapt. And simply, I just want him to be recognized for it. This may be the year. I've talked about this before. I think while the talent level on this team is quite high, I don't think it has Elite 8 level ceiling. It's just too young of a team. You're talking about only 2 returning players from last year's team. But I do think that with a year of growth, a year of progression, that the 2025 team has national championship aspirations. But you know what? That means next year's Big Ten Media Days, Illinois might be projected to finish first or second. And if Brad Underwood lives up to finishing first or second, well, the way things go, the media is going to say that he didn't deserve to be the coach of the year. And I know that because that's what's happened already before. So this is kind of like the perfect storm. Brad Underwood is replacing 9 players on this team. And according to the preseason All Big Ten team, Brad Underwood doesn't have that superstar that he may have had in years past. So what does that mean? That means if Coach Underwood has the typical season that Coach has had for the last 6 years, well, then it might be time to hand him that trophy. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And welcome back. So recently, I've talked a lot about the perceived depth on this basketball team this upcoming year. We seem to have, honestly, this roster can go 10 deep. And I found it interesting that the Sleepers Media, friends of the show, Greg Waddle, talked about how one of the biggest concerns he had for this upcoming season was that potentially we have too much depth. We have too many good players. And whether that could be a cause of concern for what the locker room is going to look like down the road. In particular, if some players aren't satisfied with the amount of minutes that they're getting. You can't just play everyone 15, 20 minutes and think that people are going to be happy. Well, I don't know if I quite look at it this way. I would rather have too many good players than not enough good players. Now, are 10 guys all going to be getting the 25, 30 minutes that they probably want? No. But do I also believe that Brad Underwood and the coaching staff at this point has kind of vetted these personalities and quite honestly understand that in today's modern college basketball world that you're going to have a roster that is just going to be pissed off at times. You're going to have individual players that you just can't always satisfy. I think a couple seasons back, Brad might have handled the situation a little bit differently when it came to guys like Adam Miller, Jaden Epps. I do feel like Brad may have tried a little too hard to appease the player as opposed to what was best for the team. But I think with those two guys transferring out eventually, I think he kind of learned from that. And it was a learning experience. And now Brad understands that, hey, I got 10 good hoopers in there. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play the 8 best ones. What does that mean for number 9 and number 10? Well, if it means that they're going to want to seek a transfer the following season, so be it. If anything, that might be doing Brad a favor, opening up more roster spots so he can try to continue to upgrade the roster, which he's obviously so aggressive in doing. You're talking about Kylan Boswell, Kasparis Jakushonis, Will Riley, Ty Rogers, Ben Hummerkaus, Tomislav Ivicic, Morez Johnson, Trey White, Jake Davis, Kerry Booth. You're talking about a lot of good basketball players. But again, in college basketball today, nobody really plays 10 players at the same time. You're right. That's a lot of talented players. But Brad Underwood has one job, and really one job only when it comes to managing this team, and that's to win ball games. That's to win the conference. That's to win the Big Ten tournament. That is to have success in the NCAA tournament. And I do think this is, again, one of the reasons that I had the opening segment of this episode that I did. Brad, I think, understands that. But, with Brad Underwood, give him 12 stars. Give him 12 All-American players. And he's going to find the 8 best ones. It's no longer about pleasing 12 guys on your basketball team. It's all about it's no longer about pleasing everybody on your roster. It's his job to win basketball games, and he's going to figure out a way to do it. If that means an exodus at the end of the year by the guys who didn't get the minutes that they wanted, well, you know why they didn't get the minutes that they wanted? It's because more than likely they were outplayed by the guys ahead of them. This is a problem that I don't mind having. I would much rather have too many good players than good players with a mix of not so good. Right now, we have no idea who's going to start. Imagine if we didn't have a Kerry Booth on this team or a Trey White on this team. Well, then we'd be counting a lot on Ben Hummerkaus or Ivicic's NCAA issues. It would be a huge concern that we would have. But the fact that we have Booth there is kind of an insurance policy. Having Trey White means that if Will Riley has some struggles as a freshman, if he's got to adjust for a little bit, well, we have a veteran in place already who can do the job that we are asking for. If those two guys were replaced by projects or guys that really weren't good enough to play at the Big Ten level, well, then we'd be talking about how big of a concern it would be the depth of this team and how reliant on the young talent we would be on this team or the NCAA coming through for us. But that's not the case. Brad Underwood has done his job as he does seemingly every year and brought in top-end talent to Champaign. And that's not anything that Illinois fans, by any stretch of the imagination, need to apologize for. College football season is well underway, and if you're looking to make your favorite team's home game, please check out the Game Time app. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through the thousands of tickets. Please customize your spot. Use all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And, of course, the lowest price guarantee. Or else the Game Time app will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So on yesterday's episode of Locked On Illini, I opened up talking about Jacob Furphy and his visit to Champaign, and I wanted to correct a couple things that I had said yesterday, which were brought to my attention that I simply misspoke on. First and foremost, I said that Jacob would be visiting UConn after the visit to Champaign. Turns out he had already gone to UConn before he had come to Illinois. And again, I just want to thank you guys. It was you guys who corrected me on this. Some of you messaged me on Facebook letting me know, and I went ahead and I confirmed. You know, I'm not perfect on the show. I'm going to be making mistakes every now and then. I will say that it seems like the timeline has also moved up. I thought this would be a recruitment that could go on until winter, maybe even early 2025. But now the whispers are that he could decide as early as this week. Something to keep in mind. Again, it's hard when you go up against a team like UConn, and to be honest, gun to my head, I would probably still think that UConn is the play. But the staff has made a really good impression on Jacob this past weekend, and I do think, if nothing else, if we were an underdog coming into this recruiting battle with the back-to-back national champions, we may still be the underdog, but the odds aren't as bad as they were coming into the weekend. And that'll just about wrap it up for today's episode of Locked On Illini. Stay tuned. The rest of the week, we're going to be zeroing in on the Purdue football game. I'll be bringing on a guest to give us a little preview of how the Purdue football team is going to look like on Saturday, what's been going right for them, and what looks like to be going wrong for them. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Obviously, that way you won't miss any sort of content, whether it's breaking news or just our daily episodes. Again, I'm here doing these shows for you daily, every single day, and there's no other Illini content creator out there that can say the same. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast. Craig Shimon puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That'll wrap it up for today. I'll see you guys on Thursday's episode. ILL. Love you guys.